2025 has been a hell of a year for gamers, but that doesn't mean we haven't seen some duds. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the 10 most disappointing games of 2025. Starting off with number 10, it's Mindseye. Let's just take the band-aid off right now. We're halfway through the year, and it's already looking like Mindseye is a lock for the worst reviewed game, released on a notable scale, at least, of 2025. It's got a dismal 37 Metascore. I just doubt something as high profile as this is going to come out and get a worse rating. Then again, I could be cursing things, because if you remember 2023, we were like, I don't think anybody can make something worse than Gollum. And then the year was like, here, try this. And slid Skull Island Rise of Kong across the bar. We sipped that, spit it out, and was like, why'd you give me that? Give us something better than that. And they're like, oh, I do have one other drink you can try. Here's Walking Dead Destinies. That series of events actually happened exactly like that, with the bar and the games being drinks and everything, between May and December of 2023. Anyway, Mindseye, kind of the dog shit game du jour. Everyone's taking pot shots at it, but the thing, it kind of deserves it. It's maybe not quite as bad as a 37 would imply. I mean, it's essentially playable. It's just so bare bones in every conceivable way. The story's a whole bunch of nothing. The shooting's incredibly basic to, like a comical degree. Literally all you can do for half the game's brief runtime is aim and shoot and take cover-ish. The driving's at least good, which is, important because you're going to do a whole lot of driving.
There's an aqueduct ahead of you and to the right. That should take you away from danger.
Going through the fence.
There's so much pointless driving back and forth in this open-ish world. You never get the chance to stop and look because there's hidden timers all over and the invisible mission failure barriers are all over the place. The only thing that the game really has that makes it stand out at all is the potential for custom content, but the little bits of that they inserted in the game to give everybody a taste of how it works, it's just awful. It's also incredibly basic and jarring, even compared to how lame the rest of the game is, which is basic and jarring. I have to admit, when it's all working, the game looks good, at least. The cutscenes can be impressive. The world design is probably the primary thing that worked out, because, man, they put a lot of work into it. But the slapdash nature of literally everything else just drags it way down. On top of that, it really does not have good performance on either PC or consoles. It's a bad game, and it does deserve the scorn it's getting. And this is coming from somebody, I love generic third-person shooters, okay? If somebody was like, I want to make Uncharted or Gears of War, but I don't want to put in the work making the charm of it. Just the gameplay. I'm going to make a crappy generic world and characters that wear like black t-shirts and stuff, and that's it. I'm usually fine with that, okay? I'll play any old crap, and even for me, this wasn't good enough.
Get the jeep. I'll wait here.
At number 9 is deliver at all costs. The important thing to keep in mind about this list is not every game I'm listing here is absolutely terrible, just they're disappointing. Okay? Deliver at all costs is one of my biggest disappointments this year so far. I think a lot of people experienced the same thing I did as well. They saw this amazing trailer, showed this wild and crazy destruction, they played the demo, and they're like, is that it? Like, I wanted to give the game a fair shot after the initial wave of disappointment, but it just never went away. There's lots of stuff to like about Deliver at all costs. The destruction physics, the goofy story stuff. At least at first, it's all pretty charming. I respect how they at least try to tell a story rather than the usual indie crutch of just making a bunch of talking heads. This game has fully animated cutscenes, which it's great. It's just that you expect it to be much funnier than it is. or better than it is. The main problem with this game is there's just not much to it. It's too easy to really challenge you, and when it does get more difficult, it feels unfair and kind of random. There's not much actual strategy to it. You're just barreling through everything easily, and that's really all there is to it.
What, the police? Perhaps I drove a bit too carelessly.
It's too basic. There's just not enough of a gameplay hook to grab once the initial thrill of physics-based destruction is gone. Ultimately, it's far from a bad game, and while it's rarely difficult, there is some simple pleasure in driving around and smashing everything as you travel from point A to point B. I just speak for a lot of people, I think, when I'm saying there was a higher expectation than this. At number 8 is the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Remember Astro's Playroom? Well, remember how there was so much positivity around it that it led to a full-blown game that went on to win numerous Game of the Year awards? A good pack-in game? Really a nice little, hey, we're PlayStation and this is stuff. Yeah, it can make a lot of goodwill for a console. Nintendo used to understand that with stuff like Super Mario Brothers on NES or Tetris on Game Boy. If this game were a pack-in, I think they'd be a lot more positive about it. Come on. It's kind of odd. Not really a game. It's a quasi-game. Sort of mixes little snippets of gameplay with some interesting little tidbits about the Nintendo Switch 2. From the name to the content, everything about Welcome Tour screams pack-in. The problem is that it isn't. Nintendo's charging $10 for it. So instead of being this fun little bonus that you get to, learn what to do with this already very expensive console, it's a needlessly expensive and pointless extra app that most players just aren't going to bother with. I mean, when everything came with instruction manuals, a lot of the time people paid no attention to them. This is a $10 interactive instruction manual. For a hardcore Nintendo fan, it's too basic to get much out of, but it's far too expensive for the casual audience. It's a game for precisely nobody and has no reason to exist. It's just weird. If it was free, it would make perfect sense, but add a price tag to it and all the value just completely evaporates. It's frankly bizarre Nintendo doesn't recognize that this is a worthless thing. I guess they thought there would be enough people suckered into spending $10 on this nothing that it would be worth it, but that kind of exploitation calculus never used to be in Nintendo's playbook, so it's just disappointing to see here. Maybe not as disappointing as if everything on the console would be like a games as a service game or anything. And the Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour is kind of cute. It's got some clever stuff to it, but for $10, it automatically makes it incredibly disappointing and has mostly negative reviews for that reason. And number 7 is Civilization 7. The first half of 2025 has been unusually solid as far as games go. Sure, some of them have been kind of divisive, like Monster Hunter Wilds, but they're essentially good games. Civilization 7, unfortunately, is not in that esteemed company. I do respect the devs for making something with some big, bold changes to the usual formula. They're changing it up, trying new things. But for a lot of Civ fans, the bold experiment was kind of a failure. It's not irredeemable or anything, but I don't know. I'd go back to 6 or maybe even 5 for my Civ fix if I'm going to play Civ. The most controversial change is that one cannot simply play Civ 7. Civ 7's actually kind of 3 games in one. The era system completely changes by essentially resetting your progress every time you jump up in age. And while, yes, it does keep the game fresh and introduces some new gameplay mechanics with each new age, the way it carves up the traditional progression system is frustrating. It's really jarring because every time you move up in age, all your stuff gets reset. Some things carry over, some things don't, and the entire process is all really confusing and needlessly vague. And for a Civilization game where you're always crunching numbers, that intentional obscurity really stinks. I know some people love the whole era system. That's fine. I respect that. I don't hate it myself. But for a lot of people, it's just not what they want. And I think the reviews, they show that. It's got a pretty respectable 79 Metascore, but it's noteworthy that this is easily the lowest rated mainline Civ game on Metacritic. Like every other game is scored higher, and that includes Beyond Earth. Not a disastrous score, not a disastrous game. It's just not what people wanted. It's changed something up that doesn't make sense to change. And number 6 is Warhammer 40k Space Marine Mastercrafted Edition. Don't know why we're doing another version of Space Marine again. Like, they put one out 4 years ago, and I don't know. If there's one thing I can say that's good about this, it's that it at least doesn't replace the previous edition, but that's the one good thing I'll say about it. Otherwise, it's pointless. It's not unplayable or anything, but it has no reason to exist. The Anniversary Edition is right there, and they gave it away for free to people who already own the game. Then we've got the Master Crafted Edition, which does very little to make the game look better, and in some places actually makes it look worse, while charging $40 with no upgrade path provided. No free upgrade, not even a $10 one for people who already own the Anniversary one, just a flat $40 for the second remaster in 4 years. I know I'm harping on it, but it really is beyond belief that they would think that they can get away with this. I mean, it's barely even a remaster. Maybe if they gave it the full Space Marine 2 visual overhaul, upgraded the gameplay systems a tiny bit, but it's not that. It's just another re-release of the same game with a few new visual bells and whistles that, I mean, they do not make it worth $40 when the Anniversary Edition was free.
Here they come. This way! They got no way out of there.
And number 5 is FBC Firebreak. This one's unfortunate because, I mean, you know we're all rooting for Remedy over here, but their latest foray into quasi-live service games doesn't quite have enough meat on the bone to be worth it. If you look at the Steam reviews, the most common complaint is the lack of content. There's essentially 6 missions with very little randomization, and that's not great. Professional reviewers are not a lot kinder, complaining about slow progression and the weak and unsatisfying starting weapons. I hate to harp on prices again, because this is a problem that's, I mean, it's going to solve itself with Steam sales, but $40 is just too much for what they're offering here. I expect the idea is they're going to be updating the game pretty often, more modes, more missions, but right now, there's just not enough to keep even a dedicated Control superfan playing. I think a big part of the disappointment is a lot of people just don't want Remedy making a game that's like this at all. Personally, I'm fine with it because it's obviously a side project. It's not an all hands on deck thing. So yeah, some people just don't want this game, but even people who are all in on the idea of a co-op shooter set in the Control universe, still a bit disappointed. The shooting isn't that great. There's no real story that connects you to the setting, and ultimately there's just not enough to keep players invested for very long. And number 4 is Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. If all you did was focus on critical reviews, you'd probably walk away thinking this was nothing of a disappointment, really. I mean, an 80 Metascore is pretty damn good, actually, especially for a lower-budget SNK fighting game like this. For longtime Fatal Fury fans, though, the disappointment was crushing. For a lot of people, never in a million years would they think Fatal Fury would have had a chance of returning after, this much time. The recent Samurai Showdown and King of the Fighters 15 also showed a lot of promise, so there was an opportunity here for Fatal Fury to come back better than ever. Capcom killed it with Street Fighter 6, and now it's Fatal Fury's turn. But instead of getting the legendary revival the series deserves, we got a piddly 17-character roster with 2 slots taken up by a real-life footballer and an Italian DJ nobody's ever heard of. Two completely unnecessary additions, forever tainted whatever goodwill this game was trying to garner with the fan base, but that was only the most obvious problem with the game. For many, they found the combat system to be unnecessarily complicated and made the fights less fun than they could be, finding the, single-player offers boring and visually unimpressive. It's nice they gave us something more in-depth than a basic tournament mode, but the RPG kind of mode here is just a bunch of menus and text boxes between fights. In comparison to what Tekken and Street Fighter have done with their single-player stuff, it just doesn't stack up. While the game has a decent critic score, I think the user score of 5.9 is a lot more accurate to how people feel about the game now. It's another one that's not terrible by any stretch, but I think fighting game fans will agree, yeah, there's some fun to have with it, but compared to the early hype, this was a disappointment. And number 3 is Captain Blood. This one might be a disappointment to exactly one person in the world, but that person is me, so it's going on the list. The story of Captain Blood's an interesting one. It was originally revealed in 2004, ended up stuck in development hell for 10 years before getting canceled, but the interesting thing is that it was essentially done, so, you know, they could release it, except for they couldn't, because it was canceled. In 2025, they managed to reacquire the rights and clean up the game and release it on Steam. It's basically a lost game from the 2000s that we can play now. It's Pirate God of War, which could be awesome. Maybe it's a hidden gem that's been buried this whole time. I wish I could say the actual game was incredible as the story behind it, but unfortunately, it was probably buried for a good reason, because, I hate to say it, Captain Blood sucks.
The dogs are hunters of space. Death to 'em all.
The controls are weird and floaty, the levels are big, empty stretches of nothing, and the combat was awkward and unsatisfying. It's a God of War clone from the 2000s, which is cool and interesting, but like a lot of God of War clones from that era, it's not as good as God of War.
The Spanish are breaking down the door.
And number 2, it's Ambulance Life, a paramedic simulator. I don't know how many people out there were hotly anticipating Ambulance Life, but I can see at least a few folks getting sucked into this thing thinking it would be maybe like some of the more recent, actually decent simulator games. For years, the simulator genre was kind of a dumping ground for half-assed games, but in the past few years, there's been some pretty interesting stuff coming out. Not this one, though. No, this game is among the worst of the simulators, and there's a lot of reasons for that. The core gameplay is super repetitive. The graphics are ugly. Just try getting the stretcher back into the ambulance. That is an uncooperative chore, at the very least. Also, according to one review, the day one patch just broke the whole game. The diagnostic system wasn't working, rendered the game essentially unplayable. The user score is slightly better at 5.2, but that's only because 5 people is the total number of people that has left reviews. So the one positive review managed to screw things up, that it breaks a 5.0. It's basically just Precinct, but worse in every way.
I suddenly heard this ringing noise in my ears and felt dizzy. I sat down and called for help.
And finally, at number 1, it's Geoguessr Steam Edition. I don't know, this is a streaming favorite and a fantastic idea for a game. It takes images from Google Street View and has you guess where they are. It's simple, it's educational, honestly, it's fun. Like, there's a reason that it's as popular as it is. So when they finally ported it over to Steam, you'd think that's an easy slam dunk, right? I mean, it's essentially just a browser game you can launch from the Steam client. How could they screw that up? Well, they found a way. They actually screwed it up about as badly as you can. The Steam reviews on this thing are brutal. 77% of the 5,000 plus reviews are negative. Reviews are so bad that even though it only just came out in May, it's the 10th worst rated game of all time on Steam. In comparison, Mindseye is in 70th place. That's a full 60 places behind. And let's keep in mind, that's crazy low itself. To be in the top 100 within this close to the release window, that's pretty crazy. But Geoguessr Steam Edition, oh boy, sailed right past it. So what's wrong with it? Well, it's mainly the price. The game's listed as free to play, but if you actually want to play it and access the vast majority of the game's features, you have to pay a subscription. It's a cost that people are willing to accept with the browser version and the mobile versions because at least your subscription is shared between platforms. But for some inexplicable reason, the Steam version needs its own subscription just to play what's essentially the exact same game. Maybe if the subscription wasn't a yearly subscription for $30 either, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I mean, that's already more than this game is worth. There's multiple free versions of Geoguessr online that are actually free. Like, there's no reason to pay for this. If they just charge a flat fee, the game would probably not get the same amount of vitriol, but they had to sell it as a free game and then slap it with a surprise subscription. Like these sort of mobile game tactics, they don't work with the savvy Steam audience. It's not actually a bad game. They're just trying to be sneaky, and gamers are fed up with sneakiness. And I feel like the anger's justified here. What do you think, though? Leave us a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.